Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining us for tonight's candidate conversations. The next office we're going to be talking about is Harris County Clerk, and I just want to remind everyone at home that everyone running for Harris County Clerk was invited to participate tonight. The candidates that you see are the ones who took us up on that offer. Before we introduce our first Harris County Clerk candidate, I'd like to pass it over to Jarrell, my co-host, to tell you a little bit about the position.
So, the county clerk maintains the records of the commissioner's court, probate courts, and county civil courts at law. Vital documents such as property records, marriage licenses, assumed name certificates, birth records, and death records, and is the chief election officer of the third largest county in the United States.
Thank you, Jarrell. We have two Harris County Clerk candidates with us tonight. The first candidate is Ann Harris Bennett, who is the Democratic candidate for Harris County Clerk. Welcome.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
If you wouldn't mind, just tell the people at home a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Ann Harris Bennett. I'm a fifth-generation Texan. I have worked in and have a great deal of experience in court administration, in the legal industry, as a genealogist, and also as an expert and testifying expert for over 7,000 land grant heirs of Texas and Spanish Mexican land grants.
Thank you. The first question I'd like to ask you has actually to do with elections. The county clerk's office, that's a huge undertaking. What do you think are the greatest challenges this November 4th for the Harris County Clerk's office managing our general election?
Well, we've got to get it right. We've got to make sure that everyone's vote is counted. And as I was leaving my office, there was a press release that was put out that has to do with hundreds of mail ballots that are sitting in our post office right now because our current county clerk has misinformed our voters. There is a note outside of that envelope, right where the postage is to be affixed, that says it's 69 cents. Right now, there are hundreds of mail ballots sitting in the post office because our current county clerk has either misinformed, either by omission or commission, and so we've got ballots that are sitting unsecured in the post office right now.
And is there anything that the Harris County Clerk's office can do, one, to ensure that doesn't happen in the future, but also to ensure that those votes are counted?
Yes, absolutely. Well, you know, first of all, you have got to have control and command of your office. There is a lot of confusion that's going on in that office right now, and that's not what the citizens of Harris County deserve. We deserve an election process that is transparent and clear and that there's integrity in that process. That's where it starts. It starts with transparency, accountability, and integrity.
You started by talking about, the need for transparency and that incident. I actually saw a little bit of it myself on Facebook. How would you have handled this situation differently? Or I guess, what does the county clerk's office need to do in order to make sure that something like that doesn't happen again?
Well, there should be a bank at the post office or an account that the county clerk's office has. And if there was any question about whether or not the postage was 69 cents or 70 cents, the post office should be able to go and get that penny and make sure that those ballots are sent back to the county clerk's office and that they're counted.
Right. Thank you. So now, as our county clerk manages a lot of different kinds of records,
yes.
I'm curious what your thoughts are. Is our current records management system a good one? If not, what would you change about it?
Actually, we've gone backwards. In the days that I was a legal secretary in the 60s and 70s, you'd have to come to the courthouse with an original and 2 copies, file stamped copies of your documents. There has been a Supreme Court order, I believe it was in 2005, that ordered all of our county clerks and district clerks to get with it. We need to be in the digital age. This is the 3rd largest county in the nation, and It was not until the day after we screened with the Houston Chronicle that our current county clerk rolled out what appeared to be a facsimile of an e-filing system or electronic filing of documents. And then about a week later, it appeared on his website. So he's about 4 years behind in the time that he's been in this office to get it up and get it running, get it online, serve the citizens, the courts, the lawyers of this county. It really does throw the judicial system in a quagmire when you're not processing documents or when lawyers can't get the documents that they need. Even with the new system that he's rolled out, according to what's on there, it'll still take three days for attorneys to get what they need or for citizens to come in and get copies.
And what documents are we talking about?
These are documents that would be filed in the courts that are involved in litigation. So yeah, you want to know that those documents are being cared for, maintained, and that they're making it where they need to be, and particularly in the courts if you've got a hearing or a trial.
Well, I am a trial attorney by practice, and so I do understand that time sensitivity that you're talking about. Yes. I'm curious, is the issue a technological one? We need better IT, or is it a personnel issue, or is it both? What would it take for the office to be up to what you think is the right standard?
Well, you have to have, first of all, you have to have a leader. You have to have someone who understands the importance. And because I have worked in this area, I have a better understanding of the importance of lawyers being able to get what they need and citizens being able to get what they need in a timely fashion. There's no reason, with all the technology that is out there, for us to still be functioning as we were functioning in the 60s and 70s.
I'm curious to know, with all of these one-penny election applications, mail-in ballots, if you were the county clerk, how would you go about informing these people, and what would the recourse be to make sure that every vote counts this November?
Well, the first thing I'd do is I'd take my checkbook, and if I could, I'd go to the post office and write a check and make sure that every one of those ballots gets back to the county clerk's office. How many there are, all I know is that there are hundreds. And I think I've probably got a couple of $100 in my checking account. I'd make sure that those ballots got there. What would I do if I were county clerk? First of all, you need to make sure that when you print material, you don't misinform the voter. The voters need to know, how much is this going to cost me? I actually assisted my campaign treasurer, who is a 55-year-old practicing lawyer. He's been practicing for 55 years. He says, put 70 cents on it, Ann. I want to make sure that it gets there. We put 70 cents on it. Jokingly, needless to say, today we find out that it probably needs 70 cents on it before it's going to make it there.
Right. So relatedly, right now, the way our elections take place, you have election oversight and voter services fragmented, right, between the tax assessor, collector, and the county clerk. I'm curious whether you think they should be consolidated, and if so, why, and if not, why?
No, I don't think they should be consolidated. I do believe, of course, the county clerk's office maintains the real property records. I believe the real property records should be in the tax office. And I believe that they would be able to take care of their business a lot more efficiently and effectively if those records were in the tax office.
So in your view, real property records should be with the tax collector, and vital records are what the county clerk should be managing?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that kind of change something that you think would be an easy thing to accomplish, or difficult? And is the county clerk the person to make that kind of change?
Well, you know, the county clerk can lobby the legislature for a number of things, especially election related. It's always baffled me why the county clerk would have the real property records in the first place. I just believe that that's where they belong. As far as the technology that goes, if those two offices are functioning properly, I don't see that there would be a problem transferring that stuff.
The League of Women Voters Education Fund of Houston and the League of Women Voters of Texas Education Fund do a really good job of, putting out information and basically encouraging voter participation. What do you think could be done in the county clerk's office to increase voter participation?
Well, you can have a much more efficient outreach. It takes a little bit of effort to get the help that the communities need, including getting voting machines out. Here's what I would do. I would do YouTube videos that would show folks how to fill out their mail ballot application, how to help them get through that very complicated mail ballot process. Also, you can use the YouTube to show people how to use the e-slates, get those out to the communities. And little things like that are really inexpensive to do would be a great way to reach out to the public and make everybody aware of, or to show everyone how to cast a proper vote, and one that's going to be counted.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. We're getting close to the end of our time with you, and so what I would like to do is provide you with just a minute or two to address our voters at home and tell them why you think that they should vote for you.
I have been in the legal community most of my young life. I have also been a clerk from the times of using papers and standing on ladders. This is the times of using the Gestetna copy system. So I appreciate where we have come with technology. In the legal community, my reputation is one of having integrity, being accountable, and being fair. And this is an office that cannot have partisan politics involved. This is not an office that any voter should be able to walk out of a poll and feel as though their vote may or may not have been counted. Everyone that leaves the polling place should walk away feeling as though their vote has been counted. My name is Ann Bennett. I have run for this office. I ran for it in 2010 on the same premise. There is no room in this office for partisan politics. I am the one that has the experience, the knowledge, and the ability to move this office into the 21st century.
Thank you very much. We have just been chatting with Ann Harris Bennett, Democratic candidate for Harris County Clerk. For everyone at home, stay tuned for the next candidate.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. We're back with candidate conversations for the League of Women Voters Houston and the League of Women Voters Texas. And we're here with our second candidate for Harris County Clerk. As a reminder, all candidates on the ballot were invited to participate, and the ones that you see before you are the ones that took us up on that offer. The next candidate we're going to be talking to is the incumbent, the Republican candidate for Harris County Clerk, Mr. Stan Stannard. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you.
If you wouldn't mind, just take a moment to tell the viewers at home a little bit about yourself, sir.
Well, I am the elected Harris County Clerk. I'm finishing up 4 years. I've been working hard. Of course, as the county clerk, I have 8 county courts that I clerk for. I have Commissioner's Court I clerk for, and the recorder of the county. All the real county property records, your mortgage, your deeds, DBAs, marriage license, birth certificates, death certificates, and of course, I run elections.
So, Mr. Stannard, there was a lot of talk today about some mail-in ballots that had the wrong, I guess, postage information. And your opponent brought it up, so I wanted to give you an opportunity to sort of explain sort of what happened.
Okay, number one, ballot by mails, come to all the post offices. And per law, per the process of the post offices, regardless if there's any postage at all, or insufficient postage, they are supposed to deliver the ballots to us immediately without delay. We had the downtown post office, apparently they were holding it. At the beginning of this year, in January, the post office made it to where if you put a metered postage on there, it was one rate, and if it was a non-metered one, it was a penny difference. It doesn't make any difference to us because, number one, they're always legally supposed to deliver us the mail. But in addition, we have an active account with the post office where we pay any insufficient postage if it does come to us. And it wasn't any issue in the primaries, in the runoff primaries, not an issue. What the issue became, this one branch who didn't get the word. We found out about it previous to others getting involved in this, and we told the people in charge of the county post office about this issue. They sent a blast email to every post office in the county, send the ballots on. You cannot legally hold on to them, regardless of any postage. So the ballots are flowing again, and they were already flowing except for one downtown branch.
Well, thank you very much for clarifying.
Yes.
I want to jump right in. Obviously, one of the tasks that you have as Harris County Clerk is vital records, yes. But you also manage property records, and I'm wondering whether you think that is where property records belong or whether they should be at the tax assessor collector's office, because that's the body that's actually figuring out what everyone owes on their property taxes.
Well, no. I mean, it's in the Constitution. It's set up that way. But at the same time, your HCAD, your appraisals, is another separate piece of government. Mm-hmm. You've got the engineering department that does the parcels, okay, and files us. So there's different pieces of government, I think, that it's appropriate because it allows us to focus on what we do. Mm-hmm. My office does the recording of your mortgage, your deeds, and keep all them records in one place, while the HCAD is doing the appraisals and the tax office is doing the tax bills. Let's each one of us focus on what we do best.
Thank you. And so then just my follow-up is, in your experience, do those 3 offices coordinate well? Are there things that they could do better?
We do pretty well, and we're doing better as rolling out technology. Since I've been in office, I've put our images on the web, and you can go see your mortgage, your deed. All you have to do is set up an account. It's free. So it's available at my county clerk's website at cclerk.hctx.net.
Great.
Now, I was talking about this a little earlier. The fact that every election night I'm clicking refresh on the page to get those updated election results. I've always wondered literally what is going on. Is it you behind a computer punching in?
No, it's not. In fact, here's the logistics of it. We're huge. We have, in this election, we'll have 769 election day polling locations. every one of those election judges have got to allow every person that's in line at 7 p.m. to cast their vote. Then after they finish that process of voting everybody, they have to go through a deliberate process of making sure every person who signed in balances to the number of people that actually cast the vote on the machines, doing their paperwork, doing their chain of custody, putting the seals on the judge booth controller that has the results that they then deliver to one of the 4 drop-off locations around the county. There I have a huge staff, my whole county clerk's office, daytime staff, they're there at night processing all those materials, the supplies and everything that the judges bring back. They also then will take that mobile ballot box that's off of there, and it is read into a computer there, then which is transmitted downtown to Central Count. Then we're polling downtown those 4 different locations, and when we get enough results in to make it, to move the meter a little bit, as it will say, anywhere from 30 minutes to 45 minutes typically, then we will print out a report. It is then given to the election judge and the alternate judge to actually go over, approve, and when they approve, then I tell my people post it to the internet.
Okay.
And it's then delivered there.
And I'm it's 2014. I can type a Facebook status update,
Yes.
and it's instant. When I vote, I would assume that it's instant. In what way do you feel that the current system that we're using is efficient, the whole process itself? And if not, or what ways?
Well, election results, then you would have to be able to be wireless at 769 polling locations, okay, to be able to get those results down back to us.
Okay.
To make sure it's accurate, you're actually talking about how people vote. And guess what? If I report something that's not right, it's not good. Okay? even if it's unofficial on election night, everything's unofficial, but we have to get an accurate count. The technology will get there. As you know, we're on a current version technology of our voting machines. Because of the fire, the county was very fortunate that insurance paid for all the refresher equipment, but we're still looking, 6-8 years before we need to refresh that equipment. And when we do, we'll be jumping to the latest technology.
Well, speaking about technology, I'm actually an attorney by trade, and so I'm familiar with the process that the county has been going through to transition to e-filing.
Yes.
And it's a big job because lawyers in Harris County file a lot with the clerk.
Yes.
So I'm curious to hear from you sort of how that process has been, and especially given the budget constraints in recent years, finding the right technology to get that job done, and if reelected, how do you see that process continuing over the next few years?
Well, e-filing is here. I mean, it's electronic world. Things are, sometimes we're being drugged, yelling and screaming to bring technology in, but I'm an engineer and I like doing technology. I like making things more efficient for our lawyers and the regular public. It's going to be there. You're going to have to file things electronically, and that's where the world's going towards. We're going to a paperless courts one of these days. We're not there yet, but that's where it's going, so be ready, it's coming. But there's advantages to that. I mean, you're going to find things that as efficiencies keep on improving with technology, it's just going to be easier, it's going to be more real time, it's going to be things that make your job easier.
And do you feel like the technology that's being implemented right now is going to carry the county through the next sort of few years?
Well, okay. For the portal, that's a statewide portal, as you know right now, and that's controlled at the state level. The behind the scenes, my court management system, the one that we have right now, which we actually got off the mainframe since I've been in office, but that was chosen before I got there, and believe it or not, unfortunately, that company has actually gone out of that business. So we're in the process now of putting a new one in and choosing a new one. So it'll be seamless to you, but it'll be a lot more pain and work for us, but we'll get it done. In fact, it'll even be better because we're actually going for the best product this year.
Right.
So if it were up to you, and I mean, as an engineer, what could be done to make things in general, if there was one thing that you could, you had the authority to change, to make things more efficient, what would that be?
My frustration is having enough technical people that can actually do everything I want them to do, okay? And it's hard to find. We're competing with the oil patch in terms of the engineers and the other people that pay more than county government typically pays. So finding strong talent. In fact, I've got openings for a strong .NET programmer, so if anyone's out there, please, go put an application in, because we are looking for one. Finding someone that can do everything that I got on my plate of, hey, I want to do this, this, this.
And what are some of those things?
Number one, just more technology that helps things work better. You should be able to take your cell phone out and find out where you go vote. That's a technology I want to go. I want it, okay? But I want to do, number one is you don't want to roast something out wrong. Okay, another one that we're working for is election day poll books. Okay, your poll books right now, as you know, they're printed out after early voting, and it's all paper. Our election judges take paper. We're working on a solution where they'll be able to take an electronic pad or computer. As you know, in early voting, we do have electronic. Okay, people just swipe their driver's license, they're matched, boom, it's quick. A little bit slower with the paper. But it's accurate. One of the things I put in place when I came into office is that printing those poll books, we do it now after early voting is complete. We do it Friday night, that night. We will print in a primary 300,000 pages of paper. Okay, well that's 60 cases of paper. That's a lot of paper, okay? But we do that overnight so that we can have every person who's early voted and every person who's returned a ballot by mail marked in that book, so that no one can vote twice. Before, it was done in midweek and only had about half of them done, and the election judges actually were giving a list so that they would manually take a couple of hours, manually marking it themselves before Election Day. So this is much better. They love me for this, by the way.
I'm sure that's right. So one of the things that the League of Women Voters spends a lot of time on is just getting the word out about voting, registering voters, encouraging people to show up at the polls. I'm curious what role you think the Harris County Clerk's Office should play in encouraging voter turnout. Well,
number one, I think turnout is really the responsibility of the campaigns. Now that said, photo ID is kind of a unique opportunity where we've worked very hard to get that word out. We did billboards last November before the first time photo ID was rolled out. We've got billboards across the county once again telling people, remember your photo ID. We've gone to all the colleges, all the schools. We've gone to every entity we can find to help and remind the voters about photo ID. Because remember, half the people that show up this November will not have voted using a photo ID where it's required. Most of them were already doing it, as you know, because it's just that convenience. They do have that with them.
Is there anything in the election process itself, as far as because this actually happened to me now that voter ID is an issue. There was an instance where I went to vote, and what was it? I think the addresses didn't match. That's what it was. The addresses didn't match. Right. And I always wondered, like, how will I know if my vote was actually counted?
If it goes in the can without voting provisionally, it's in the can.
Or I guess if it was a provisional ballot, in what ways can we make sure that people know that their vote was actually counted? Or can we speed that process up? Because I know it's X amount of days for this.
Well, if you vote provisionally, the ballot board, which is made up people of both parties, they actually look at their ballots, and I'm going to tell you, majority of them are really counted. I mean, if they meet the criteria of the law, they are all counted, everyone that does. You know, most ID is one that we had, photo ID. We had, last November, we had 260,000 people voting. We had 105 photo ID issues. Now, 6 of those were not even registered to vote. So yeah, the 99, 8 came back within that 6 days and showed an ID so that their vote counted. The rest of them probably saw the results and it says, why go to the bother of doing it now? I'll just, I'll bring an ID later.
How many folks was that?
What, 99 minus 8, so.
Okay,
Yeah,
91.
that's how many, out of 260,000, it's a small number, and one of the things I did is if you notice in your poll books, we already hard match everybody that we can. Okay, and it's already, we'll put that similar name already in the poll books so that all you have to do is initial it, say that's me, and then you update it so that you don't have to initial it next time.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to make that similar name issue very easy for the voters. It even takes care of those issues of, people getting married, names changed. Address, not an issue. Your photo ID name is the only thing that needs to match. Okay, that in your face or in your photo, okay? But it's not an issue. One of the requirements of photo ID is your address does not have to match the address that you're registered at.
Okay, good to know.
All right.
So we were talking at the very beginning about sort of different offices doing different functions for the county. Another thing that's sort of split in what is to me an interesting way is that elections are managed by the county clerk and voter services are managed by a completely different entity.
Yes.
Do you think that is a system that works well, or would you support consolidation? What are your thoughts?
It works well. I'm happy with the way it works right now. Mike Sullivan does a good job of maintaining the row, and I do a good job of running the elections. It helps us with focus, because elections isn't the only thing I do, and elections isn't the only thing the tax collector does. So, they're complicated elections. There's tons of election law, and you can't even hardly do anything without there's being a law about it dealing with elections. All right.
What would you call thus far as an incumbent your greatest challenge? And I guess the opposite of challenge would be your greatest victory thus far.
Well, it kind of goes along, I think they come into play. When I came into office, remember the election warehouse had just burnt down 67 days before the election I was actually elected in. The Harris County Election Department did a fantastic job pulling it off. Beverly Kaufman and her team were just top notch, and I've still got that team there, by the way. And so they do a fantastic job. But Beverly had only put us into a lease place, okay, and that was paid by insurance again, which is a good deal for the county. But I had to then either accept where the county was going to rebuild on the land we already had, a metal building that we had, okay, using the insurance money and grant money that I had for election warehouse space. I got more than twice the space with land, a fantastic building that is now got the space that we need because we were totally out of space at the previous place. Now we have enough place where I put the election department, also my county clerk's records, and the tax department has their warehouse out there. The whole building paid for all that money. So the taxpayers got a great deal. And it was also where John O'Quinn had his automobile collection, 400 plus beautiful automobiles. So it was a beautiful building. But of course, he'd passed away and it was being sold off, and we hit really at the perfect spot on the price in terms of the economy buying that building, and now it's worth twice what we paid for it.
Wow.
Well, Mr. Stannard, we're getting close to the end of our time with you. What I'd like to do is offer you the opportunity to address the voters at home and let them know why you think they should vote for you.
I've worked very hard for you as your Harris County clerk. I put my life into this position. It keeps me very busy, but I am just pleased to say that with a staff of over 300 full-time employees and over 5,000 people working on Election Day, I believe that I've earned the right to be honored by you and having your vote for be reelected as Harris County Clerk. And I do ask that you give me that right. Voting. I ask that everyone vote. Everyone go to harrisvotes.com. Look up your personal ballot. Find out where you can early vote, those 41 locations. Find out where your Election Day polling location is. And please participate. Study those issues, study those candidates. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, you've just heard from the incumbent Harris County Clerk, Mr. Stan Stannard, the Republican candidate for that office. And please stay tuned for the next candidate.
All right.
Welcome back to our conversations with the candidate this evening. We're going to switch offices for you now and talk to you about candidates for Harris County District Clerk. As a reminder, all candidates for that position were invited to participate tonight. The candidate that you see is the one that took us up on that offer. And before I introduce her to you, I'd like to turn it over to my co-host, Darrell Douglas, to tell us a little bit about the position.
So, the District Clerk, the Harris County District Clerk's office summons prospective jurors for the 74 courts. Juries are drawn from a jury wheel, which consists of names of registered voters and/or holders of the Texas driver's license. The Harris County District Clerk's office is responsible for custodial care and safekeeping of all court records for the 59 district courts and the 15 county criminal courts located in Harris County. In addition, the Harris County District Clerk has the responsibility of providing customer service to all child support cases or causes heard in Harris County.
Thank you, Darrell. The candidate with us tonight is Judith Snively, the Democratic candidate for Harris County District Clerk. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
If you wouldn't mind, just take a couple of minutes and talk to our voters at home about who you are.
Okay, my name is Judith Snively. I have been an attorney for 27 years, and I have worked in all of the courts that I would be keeping the records for. I've worked in family courts, criminal courts, civil courts, and juvenile courts. Because of that, I decided to run for this office because I understand what happens in a courtroom and how a lot of the district clerk's functions are like the cog of the whole justice system.
Well, so thank you. Let me just sort of start right where you ended and ask, what are your views about how the district clerk's office runs now? And if you are unhappy with how it runs now, what would you change?
Well, what has happened is that we have changed to an e-filing system, meaning that what we used to go in and file with paper, we now put it through the computer. Let's, for example, a divorce decree. If in the past you would take the paper into the court, into the clerk's office, you would file it, it would get date stamped, you would get a court, you'd get a cause number. You could go back to your office and call your client and say, I filed it. This is the court we're going to be in and this is the number. That's all changed. Now you take that same document and you send it to a server out into cyberspace, and then one of 7 servers sends it to the clerk's office. And at that point, you have no control over that document. The Supreme Court of Texas in 2014, January 1st, decided that they didn't want any paper anymore because they could save money by putting everybody into an e-filing system. The larger counties were mandated to do it. Some of the smaller counties are still working it out. So that has changed the whole game. Lauren Jackson, the prior district clerk, had started an e-filing system, a free e-filing system, before he left office. This is a kind of a pay-as-you-go. You pay a server a small amount, and then they send it to the clerk. Then the clerk's office has to approve it or reject it. And this is where the problem is happening. A lot of cases are getting rejected for many reasons. I believe we need to get some possibly contract attorneys to go in and sit with the clerks until they understand fully what they can accept and what they can reject.
So in your view, the issue is just one of educating the people who are working in the clerk's office?
I believe the clerks are trying very hard to comply with the Supreme Court's mandate, but it's almost a year since it's gone in and we have a lot of kinks still in the system. And I believe it's because the clerks are not trained to understand what can be accepted and what can't. For example, many lawyers have come to me and said that they have filed emergency writs, meaning something that needs to be heard right away, and those files are getting rejected. So if you have a kidnapping of a small child, say from another state, that child is brought to Houston, an attorney here is alerted, they try to go in and file an emergency situation to get that child out of the hands of the kidnapper. Could be the father, but he may not have permission to have the child. It's taking 3 and 4 filings and maybe 4 and 5 days to get into court. So we have got to do something to change that.
So you're basically saying, and keep in mind, I'm not the attorney of the group, but you're basically saying it's quicker because it's e-filing when it goes in, but then it just goes to a clerk who didn't go to law school, didn't pass the bar, doesn't know all the legalese of it, and then it gets rejected. And is it that part, the response part, is longer, or is it?
Well, what I'm saying is I think the clerks are trying very hard, and they work very hard, don't get me wrong. I've been down there, as I say, for 27 years, and I think some of the hardest working people in that courthouse are the clerks that sit in the courtrooms. They have a tremendously responsible job because they have to mark in a very highly sophisticated system of computerization everything that the judge orders and says. It's not the same thing as a court reporter. They don't take down every word, but they are responsible for entering all the judgments. So I do not want to say anything, you know, derogatory at the clerks. They work very hard. I'm just saying that this all came in so fast, and I believe that we need more training. A lot of clerks have left the office, and I believe that's really the main problem. We've lost a lot of trained clerks. In the past 4 years, we've lost about 1/4 of the workforce, either resigning or being discharged. And when you lose that many workers, you're going to have problems. So it's the training and the losing of several highly trained clerks.
And it sounds to me like another issue that you're talking about here is an inefficiency in the way that the e-filing system is set up. You know, my practice is primarily in federal court, and ECF is seamless. It goes from your computer straight to the court. You get docketed immediately, but it sounds to me like the system you're describing has these intermediary steps. Is that something you can do something about?
Probably not. I mean, the Supreme Court mandated the system, and the 7 servers that we're using now were approved by the state, and it's been set up. So we would have a hard battle to go in and completely turn around what they've decided for us. It's just that once it's filed, the lawyer loses control over that document, and eventually it will get there, but even the judges are dismayed because a lawyer comes in to have a case heard and there's nothing there. There's no paper, there's nothing, because it hasn't reached the court. So that's the problem. And how we fix it is going to be a big job, but I believe that I can go in there and at least know what the pitfalls are and what we need to be looking at and working on.
Thank you. Now, shifting gears a little bit to talk about the other big job that the Harris County District Clerk's Office has, and that's juries.
Yes.
And certainly getting jurors to show up when they're sent a jury summons is a difficult task. What are your thoughts on how the Harris County District Clerk's Office could have a higher response rate to the jury summonses that are sent out?
That's a great question, because that is something that we've had problems with for years. The way that it works is that the pool is taken from, it used to be just voter registration, and now it's licenses and IDs. And you know, there's a lot of people in this county to pick from. The problem is if they don't go, there's nothing that happens to them. So we've got to change that. I don't know, when you get with the judges, because they ultimately have the last word, if we could explore something like a compliance hearing, somebody doesn't show up for jury duty, you send them a notice and say you need to show up in court and explain why you didn't come to jury duty. That's a massive undertaking, and I don't know how we could explore it, but that would be one way, because right now they're just not showing up. But the thing that I think we need to look at are trying to entice more people from other neighborhoods, minority neighborhoods, to come down there. Because right now the jurors that are there are not juries of one's peers. We have a lot of people being tried in criminal cases that when the jury panel is out there, and I know from experience, you walk around the criminal halls and you look at the panels, and then you go in and look at the defendant, and it's really not a jury of your peers. So we have to get out in the neighborhoods and explain to people how important it is to come down there and serve. So I think we can do that, and we have to try to do it, because it's that important.
And I find it really interesting that that you sort of you know, point out the problem, because I'm assuming that they're just mailed out. Am I correct? They're mailed out, the jury summons.
Right.
I've been once.
All right.
My question is, you know, with the changing of the times, and I tell my mom this all the time. She's like, "You never answer your phone." Facebook me, right? Or email me. In your opinion, is there a way that we can move that part of it into the...
It's a possibility,
And what
but
might
then
that look
again,
like?
how are you going to prove that somebody got the email? You know, it's kind of like, did they get the letter? There has to be something to come back and say, yes, they got it. We have proof that they got it and they didn't show up.
Or perhaps an additional layer?
Well, that was this compliance that I was talking about.
Okay.
If we could send another letter, you know, after, maybe give them one time when they miss, and then the second time when they don't respond, then you send that letter out and say, you know, you're summoned to be in court yourself.
Well, and the problem that we're talking about here is somewhat of an informational problem because because your jury summons rolls are tied to people's driver's licenses, and there are a lot of people, when they move, they don't change their address. Either they are going off to university, but it's a temporary address and they're coming home, or vice versa, or they just don't bother when they move to a new place. And I'm curious, how is that problem tackled?
That is a problem, and I think it's always been a problem, and it may always be a problem. This is a huge county, 4 million people. It's hard to keep track of. And the way that it works is the judges order, they have an idea of how many jury panels they're going to need in a specific time. But being down there and actually practicing, we know what happens. What happens is you have a panel out in the hallway. There may be 5 to 7 cases set for that day. And we all know they're not all going to go to trial. There may be some that plead out right that moment. There may be some that we have no witnesses. There are a multitude. Maybe the judge just got a phone call that he has to go to school to pick up his ill child. There are so many variables that happen. And yes, a lot of people go down there and they're not needed. But they may be the very person that's standing out in the hall that causes that person to decide not to go to trial. So there are so many variables that happen in a courtroom, and I think a lot of people don't really understand that they are needed down there. Whether or not they sit and watch some case or they're there to maybe push that case along. It's just such an important function.
When, you know, you talked about impressing on Harris County residents the importance of participating in juries, what might an effort like that look like?
The compliance with judges?
No, an effort, if you're Harris County District Clerk, what might that outreach effort look like?
I would say we would work with neighborhood centers, because their outreach is all over the county, and do some seminars and try to get people to come in conjunction with other things that they're doing. They do a lot of I would say adult education and awareness and picnics and just kind of incorporate some of this jury and start in the schools. Let's start in the schools. Go to the grade schools and start talking about juries and what they are and how important it is. I really think that even high school students, they see TV and that's all they know. I mean, I really think we need to start taking more high school students down to the courthouse. And there are a lot down there, but all neighborhoods, not just some schools. It's really, I think, a lack of education more than anything else. They don't know what a jury does.
Do you believe that the Harris County District Clerk's office should be an elected one?
Well, at this point I do. That's always been, I mean, for years they've talked about that. And yes, it's an administrative office. It's probably what I would call the office that nobody seems to know much about or care about. And yet when it's time to go pull a record, they want it to be there. And that's why I'm running, because I want the records to be there. I want to know that if something happens in court 10 years from now, you can go find it. Or I want to know that when you file a document, it gets to the right court, timely. So I'm very excited about trying to go in there and do something about making it better for the public, making it better for the bar, the judges, and most of all the clerks that work there, so they'll stay.
Some of the same challenges you talked about with respect to reaching potential jurors I'm assuming, must also apply when you're trying to do the third job Harris County District Clerk does, which is child support cases.
That's correct.
What do you think is the biggest challenge in managing those child support cases? Is it just finding people, or is it enforcement? And what can the Harris County District Clerk's Office do to address that challenge?
Well, it has changed an enormous amount since I first started practicing 27 years ago. We couldn't get anybody to pay anything, and then we started what at that time was a stigma: they're going to garnish his wages. And of course now I would want my clients to have their wages taken so that I know that they're paying their child support. So it's changed a lot from where we were, let's say 20 years ago. And I think with the computerization of so many things, we can find people now. Before you had to hire an investigator, to find some deadbeat dad. I think now that it's much easier to find people through records, and I think it's gotten a lot better. Yeah, there's still going to be deadbeat dads out there, but I really feel that we've come a long way.
Great. We're getting very close to the end of our time with you. So what I'd like to do is offer you the opportunity to address the voters who might be watching at home and let them know why you think they should vote for you.
Okay. Again, my name is Judith Snively, and I think the important thing about the district clerk's office is definitely keeping of the records. Anything that happens in a courtroom needs to be properly recorded. Let's talk about a criminal case. If you put the wrong number of days and somebody stays in jail too long, that's a real problem. You talk about a child support case where the wrong amount gets put on the document, that's a real problem. So we really need to have records that people can rely on, people can find, and I'm all for that. I've practiced long enough and have represented enough people that I believe it's the public that gets hurt if we can't keep the records in the right places. So I'm running because I've got the experience. I also have worked with so many clients in so many courts. I understand their frustration, and now I'm understanding the lawyer's frustration and not to be able to get these records and these documents filed properly and not be able to move a case along. Because the more that they lose time with it, their clients can't get relief. So I know it's a challenge. I'm taking it on because I feel that I know enough about what happens in those courts to go in. I have a good relationship with the judges, the bar, and as I said, I've had thousands of clients myself in different areas, so I believe I can go in there and have a full understanding of what the clerk's office does and how to go in and try to fix some of the areas.
Thank you very much. We have just been speaking with Judith Snively, Democratic candidate for Harris County District Clerk. And on behalf of my co-host Darrell Douglas, the League of Women Voters Houston and the League of Women Voters Texas, I'd like to thank you for joining our conversations with the candidate tonight and encourage you to remember November 4th is right around the corner. Be sure to turn out and vote. And if you'd like information about your particular ballot and which candidates you can look for on that ballot, you can visit vote411.org and search your candidate by zip code. If you'd like more information about the League of Women Voters Houston, you can visit lwvhouston.org. And if you'd like more information about the League of Women Voters Texas, you can visit lwvtexas.org. Thank you so much for joining us, and good night.